that he's on this program. Because the one thing I will say about this program, whether or not I am right or wrong with my opinions, these are genuine. This is how I feel. That's all I want. All I want is some non-agenda, calling it like it is, being honest with the audience, no sunshine pumping when there doesn't need to be sunshine to pump, unbiased analysis. That's all I want. We talk about how we say crazy things all the time on this show, and we do. But the one thing I've always said is you got to be fair. Like, you can't just say, oh, well, I want to go after this guy, so let me make this everybody's fault. Let me this, let me that. I'm not. I believe in being fair. I am critical of Ran Carthon because I think Ran Carthon makes a lot of stuff up. And it seems like a lot of the things that he makes up seem pretty easy to disprove. And I think he's kind of, as Chad Withrow said on our program a couple weeks ago, intellectually dishonest sometimes. But when we criticize the Titans and the T'Vondre Sweat pick, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I'm not just putting Rand in that. Brian Callahan's neck is on the line too. So is Chad Brinker's. Because that's the group that decided, you know what, 38, let's take Sweat. So if T'Vondre Sweat shows up out of shape, it's going to be all of them that we're putting it on. I'm not just going to put it on Rand. Because I always believe in being fair. But at the same time, you got to tell the truth. And I think far too often, and I'm not saying that Derek's not telling the truth. I'm not saying that, whatever, because I just think there's a difference in opinion. But I do believe that there are a lot of people in the media, not the Nashville media, but just the big media overall. There are a lot of people that hold things back because they don't want to rock the boat. Because they don't want to have to deal with the phone call. Because they don't want to have to be the person that people are mad at. Trust me, I've been the person people are mad at plenty of times. It's not fun. Like, it's not fun to have people hate you. But I just believe that in doing this job, it's about telling the truth. And so you can criticize Trevor all you want. And you can say, well, that was irresponsible. You can say, oh, well, he doesn't understand, which I think is kind of the Tyke Tolbert claim, which is like, oh, no, you don't understand. What I'm trying to get these guys to do in these drills is I'm trying to get them to go 75% because he's just coming over from special teams. And so we're telling him to tone it down a little bit. And Trevor's sitting here saying, yeah, I got that. And he's still calling it out. And I appreciate that. And what's very clear to me is when Tyke Tolbert basically says, you don't understand, or he's like, no, I do understand. And I do think, again, as we talk about why what Trevor says matters, with his credibility, I think he does understand. I mean, I've gotten Jared, you don't understand. I've gotten that for 100 years, it feels like. Really more like 10. But I've gotten that. Oh, Jared, you don't understand. And sometimes I don't. But in this case, he understands. Like, he understands that, this is what he's like, I know. I saw Jaquan Jackson. I saw Calvin Ridley do the same drill. It ain't the same. And so I appreciate Trevor's honesty. And I appreciate how he saw what he saw and he's not backing down. And it makes me want to have Trevor on the show more because of that. Way to go, Trev. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025 here on the program. A lot of you want to weigh in on this, so we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
In no way am I going to make this a big deal about Traylon Burks catching the ball when it's not full speed and taking 2 or 3 steps up the field. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. And if anyone else tries to make it a big deal, I'm going to shut you down each and every time, because that right there. Now, we could talk about everything else. We could talk about the other stuff. But that, hell no, that wasn't a big deal. It's not. And I'm not going to let anyone make it a big deal. To me, that was just irresponsible, because what Trevor says holds a lot of weight. A lot of weight. So that's why I'm saying, if Trevor was just some, as Jared said, some Scarboni or Scarbini, then I wouldn't care. That was his. It is. But what Trevor says holds weight. So to me, only me, that was a bit irresponsible.
That was D-Mace last week. I asked Trevor, I said, what do you make of the criticism? He's like, yeah, man, like, I think the line was, Ian, that Trevor used, I'll talk to any assistant coach, head coach, player, or former player. And I wondered when Trevor said former player, if that was Trevor saying, I'll go on the midday show and talk this through.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm not booking the midday show for them. That's their job, not mine. But I mean, that's what it kind of sounded like to me. And again, Trevor's not backing down. And it's funny because, again, TD asked the question about Burks and the drills, or Burks' effort, or whatever. And Tyke Tolbert said, yeah, I heard the criticism, but what people don't understand is, and then delivered the context. We played the cut for Trevor. Trevor said, yeah, I'm happy that Tyke Tolbert is standing up for his guy, but he's not withdrawing his claims, which I appreciate. But it is funny looking at the tweet that TD sent out, and the responses to the tweet are people saying, see, now, thank God, now we have context and everybody can chill out. Or, oh, wow, see, this is why context is important instead of people jumping to conclusions. See, people need to, and I'm like reading these responses from fans, and I'm like, yeah, Trevor heard that context and he still doesn't care about it. Like, I'm just telling you right now, because we asked him and he was like, yeah, he's standing and have criticized the GM, wouldn't have criticized Floyd. I mean, I'd said a disaster. He is the all-time winningest GM in the history of the franchise. Trevor was right. Cutting the guy for an isolated incident is not the correct solution. I mean, do you want guys to up these guaranteed anyways? But as far as, the idea of Traylon, they've replaced him. Okay? They've gone out and they've gotten 2 guys to play over him in Tyler Boyd and Calvin Ridley. And the only reason they waited until after the draft to sign Tyler Boyd was because they really wanted Malik Neighbors in the draft. So they were not interested in relying on Burks this year, which good on them. But if you've got a standard to uphold, if you're trying to set a culture and you say, okay, these are the expectations and you don't meet them, you've got one of 2 choices. Either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. So when you say, how could Trevor do this? He's telling you, like, the standard is here and Burks didn't meet it. One texter says, could you explain PK's disregard for Trevor? I respect and learn when I listen to Trevor, so hearing PK criticize Trevor and your belief in Trevor drives me crazy. Is it Paul's shtick? I am actually shocked that is a question into the text line, but I will respond to it. If Trevor Maddich went on another show, like if he went on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace and had the Dylan Radins take that Paul was like, I don't care what Trevor Maddich said, or he had the Traylon Burks take, which Traylon Burks is a bad body language guy anyways, which those were Paul's reactions to Trevor's opinions. If he said it on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace, I think Paul would have been, oh, yeah, Trevor knows. But because Trevor said it on this show, Paul's going to crap on it. Paul's going to crap on anything that has to do with me. I mean, if you guys haven't realized this by now, then you guys are not keeping up with Paul Kaharski. It's why I like Paul, because I get Paul. And Paul doesn't like me because Paul's jealous. because Paul wants to be the one guy in town. He wants to be the one sheriff that, I tell it like it is. I'm the authority. So when I come around being like, hey, I'm going to say whatever I think. I don't care. I'm just going to let it fly. He doesn't like that. That's why. It's like Floyd told me when he was at ESPN and Todd McShay got there. Floyd said, look, Mel did not like Todd McShay at first because Mel looked at Todd McShay like he was a threat. Now, I think Paul and I are different. I don't think Paul could do 4 hours solo and make it interesting. And I'm certainly not a beat guy, never have been a beat guy, never run a website, anything like that. But I do think, again, I think that the reason why he craps on Trevor is because Trevor's on this show. And if Trevor was on another show, he would be all for it. Like Blake Bedingfield writes at his website. I have a lot of respect for Blake. If it's not for Blake Bedingfield, there's no Derrick Henry. So when Blake Bedingfield writes an article at PK's website, I go to it. Like, I want to read it. And I don't discount it because it's at Paul's website. I don't think Paul can reciprocate that and say, okay, well, I don't like Jared or I don't like his show or whatever. I don't think he can do that and then credit somebody who is on the show. That's my gut on all of that. Michael has been waiting patiently and is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on what Derek said. I'm a nobody in the sports world, obviously. I coach, my 8 and 9-year-old, my 8-year-old and 9-year-old Mount Juliet at Greenville High School, a competitive league. And the number one thing we teach is effort. The number one drill we do is a 5-yard, basically comeback. They run 5 yards, turn around, catch, look the ball in, and run. So I don't see why, and this is, again, I'm a nobody in the football world overall. Sure. I don't understand why he had a problem with it and why he was okay with it. Like, effort is the number one thing we teach out of the gate is running through, catch the ball, and turn it and run. So why is it okay and NFL players not doing it?
You know what? Michael, I hear you. That's a great call. Last year, the Titans went to Tampa Bay, and there was an outside linebacker. I think his name was Tashawn Gibson. That sounds right. Right, Ian?
For who did he play for?
The Titans last year. He was like the 4th outside linebacker.
For the Titans?
Yeah, Tashawn Gibson.
It's not ringing a bell, but I'll take your word for it.
So he played for Chicago, and he sacked the quarterback in the preseason.
I do remember that
3 times.
Yeah,
and then they claimed him.
Yep.
When Chicago waived him.
Okay.
And so I think his name was Tashawn Gibson. It may be off a little bit. I swear Gibson was his last name.
I think you're right.
So, anywho, they played at Tampa Bay. And there was a play against Tampa Bay where the Tampa Bay guy, busted off one for a touchdown. I think it was a running play or it was a short pass and maybe a screen pass, and they ran across the field and ran 70 yards for a touchdown. And when I watched the tape that night after the game, I saw Gibson kind of dogging it.
Travis Gibson.
Travis Gibson. I saw Gibson kind of dogging it. Like he was in a home run trot. Like he had just hit a 3-run shot at Shea Stadium. And so I see him in this trot. So the next day I go to the press conference, and I asked Mike Vrabel, and I said, I think I started to say, hey, can I just ask? And Vrabel's like, well, you ask whatever you want. I said, okay. I was like, this is going to sound accusatory, but I promise you it's not. And, of course, Vrabel rolled his eyes and was like, oh, okay, here goes Jared Stillman with a question saying he's going to accuse somebody. So I said, was Travis Gibson's effort on that touchdown, was that meeting of the standard? And Vrabel responded, I was kind of shocked because I'm asking a question about effort, but I'm not saying his effort was bad. I am trying to, I'm just trying to figure out, like, is there something there or is there something? And Vrabel was like, probably not. It probably wasn't the effort that we wanted to play with, but some guys on certain plays are hurt or some guys on certain plays don't, are trying to conserve energy or something like that. I don't think Gibson was active for another game last year. It was very noticeable to me that after that, inactive.
He played 8 games last year.
He played in 8 games. I bet you, Ian, if you pull up his game log, the last game he played in was Tampa Bay last year.
Give me just 1 second. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to put you, because I think that after that, it was like, hey, man, like.
I believe that is correct. Actually, he played in the Seattle game.
Okay.
He was not inactive in the Seattle game. I don't actually know if he played. 2 snaps on special teams.
So here's a guy that was playing real defensive snaps. Lollygags that one for a touchdown, and I'm like, question, was he dogging it? And Vrabel said yes, and then never played the guy again. Because, again, like, this is the NFL. Like, you got to play hard. And so on the Burks front, again, make of that what you will about Burks and, going 75%. Again, Trevor's thing was mentally he was checking out and that he's not interested in that. All right, more of your phones. 615-737-1025. We'll write to them because we got a lot of phones to get to. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Trevor, is that explanation suffice for you?
Absolutely not. First of all, I respect it when a coach has his players back. That's fine. What a coach says about a player in public and what he says to a player behind closed doors are often different, and the coach often has different reasons for that. And so I am in no way being critical of the coach. But I want you to sit back in your chair, Jared, and watch me knock this completely out of the park. Out into the bay, past the kayakers, okay, with a big splash.
Might be good.
Because I wasn't talking about his physical effort on full speed reps. I talked to you, Jared, repeatedly about you don't always go full speed physically, but you must always be at full focus mentally, especially when you're not going full speed. If it's walk through, if it's jog through, if it's half speed or 3/4 speed.
There you go. That was Trevor last hour on the program. He's not backing down on the Burks criticism. No matter what the coach says, it's not going to affect him. To your phones, as promised, Dylan has been waiting patiently and is up next on Burks. Dylan, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Jared? I'm not a Burks defender by any means or anything, but I mean, when Trevor his first take about Burks, I'm like, fine, I wasn't there, I didn't see it. Maybe he was bad, but how does he know? And an honest question, mentally, how does he know he's not mentally there? Like, is he a mind reader? It's like he's doubling down on this take. I don't get it. And I just listening to it again, it sounded dumber the second time around. He didn't knock anything out of the park. I mean, look, I know I like what he says most of the time, but this does not make any sense to me. Like, seriously, how can you tell he's not mentally focused?
Well, can you tell when when their heart's not in it and they're just going through the motions?
I mean, no, not really. I just think, everyone's different. And I think this isn't just a football thing. This is just a personality. This is just he doesn't know that. He's not a psychic. That's all I'm trying to say. And it just sounds so, to me, it's my opinion, just my opinion.
Dylan, I hear what you're saying.
Irresponsible. All right.
I hear what you're saying. I think his thing is, like, and again, I'm not speaking for Trevor, but his thing is I'm watching Calvin Ridley do the same drill. And I'm watching Calvin mentally finish the drill. I'm watching Jaquan Jackson do the same drill. And I'm watching Jaquan Jackson mentally finish the drill. The Titans used to have a thing with Vrabel. I don't know if Brian Callahan will continue to do this or not. But say they'd run a running play. And they'd hand the ball off. They don't tackle in practice, so the running back will run through the drill, right? And in that case, everybody else would follow the running back, and they'd run through the drill. Well, you can tell if somebody is just kind of cutting it short. And I think that's what Trevor's talking about. That in the drill, well, I know that's what he's talking about. In the drill, Burks kind of cut it short. Think about it like running out a ground ball. Sure, sometimes guys, when they're running out of ground balls, sometimes they're running through the bag. Sometimes guys got some leg injuries. Maybe he's not going hard. And sometimes guy hits a ground ball to second base, and he's mad that he hit a ground ball to second base, and he just dogs it out of the box. And you know the difference. So, I was standing there with Trevor, watching the disgust of watching him when Burks was running through this, and I know what he was talking about. And when he says, look, I saw Jaquan Jackson run the same drill. I saw Calvin Ridley run the same drill. He's basically saying, Burks is dogging it. Josh says, this may be an isolated incident, but it's one of several isolated incidents involving Burks. Boy, that's cold. He says, out of shape, injuries, disappearing on the field, dropping the football, checking out in practice. Trevor was correct for calling him out, and I agree it is time to trim the fat. That comes from Josh in White House. I mean, again, I wouldn't have cut Burks, but I do think that there is something. I do think there is something with all of this to this just massive defense of there's no way Burks could have been dogging it on the field. And I'm like, how do you know there's no way? I watched what Trevor saw. I mean, again, I wouldn't have gone that far, but I know why he's thinking what he's thinking. 615-737-105. Trevor's texted. Trevor texted me and said, I know because I see what he does. His mental focus is apparent in his actions. That coming from Trevor on a text message. Let me say this again. More times than not, Trevor is usually more glass half full than he is glass half empty. In fact, when that segment from last week, I asked the first thing, I was like, what did you think of minicamp? And he was like, boy, the defense looked great, and they were swarming, and they were playing the Titans offense. If you want to be glass half empty, you'd say, oh my God, Levis was late on a throw, and he gets a pass that should have been a deep ball, was broken up. He was this. Instead, it was just positive about the defense. But like an umpire, he's saying, hey, I saw what I saw. That call I made at first base, I saw what I saw. Oh, you don't understand. The you don't understand, that is becoming one of my all-time favorites. And the Titans, over the last couple of years, have been more you don't understand than I'd care to get into. Under Robinson and Vrabel, it was more like they didn't care. So if there was a criticism of, how could you guys be so stupid that you did not know that Isaiah Wilson was going to go off the deep end? And it's like, well, we tried our best and it didn't work. All right, we don't care that you're mad about it. That was the Robinson Vrabel approach. We don't care. What's your criticism? We don't care. The current administration feels like their thing is you don't understand. Now, Vrabel started to get into that at the end, right? Like when it came to the training staff and it came to the assistant coaches, and it was like, you don't understand. But that has kind of been their thing lately, which is, this doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Every draft guru is telling us that Tavondre Sweat is a third-round pick, fourth-round pick. He's got the red flags. He got a DWI. He's got the... You don't understand. Or nobody else was interested in trading for L'Jarius Sneed, and Minnesota reportedly pulled their offer back, and you guys traded and passed him on the physical, and not even Kansas City wanted to keep him to try to win a Super Bowl with one of the best corners, and you don't understand. That's kind of been the Titans' approach. And the you don't understand only gets me to a certain point to when I'm like, okay, now everything is going to be I don't understand everything. Got it. That's what gets me frustrated with the Predators. Carl Taylor, the coach of the Admirals, came out. The Zachary LaRue, in the last 10 Admiral games, scored 5 goals. He's 21 years old. He's a former first-round pick. I'm like, okay, call him up. And Carl Taylor, the coach of the Admirals, is like, oh, he's not ready. I'm like, he's not ready. He's 21 years old. Philip Forsberg logged 82 games for the second time in his career when he was 21 years old. Oh, Jared, you don't understand. No. I understand. I just think you're wrong. One texter says, I never remember A.J. Brown dogging it. I'm trying to think. Was effort ever a question with A.J.? I don't think it was. I think the Twitter fingers were a question. I think the knees with A.J. were a question. At the end, it was an attitude thing, but A.J. was fine. As far as, was he a problem? He was never a problem. A.J. was fine. I don't think effort was ever a question. I don't even want to get into this. One texter says, you don't understand, Jared. The ball did not bounce their way. I am not getting into that. Dustin says, the caller talking about not understanding. Trevor was talking about practicing the way you play. When you train on Bill Callahan's sled, it's not full game speed, but but you're building the muscle memory to fall back on it when you're in a stressful game situation because you've done it. If Treylon Burks plays like the rep was described, he's going to get smoked and he's going to get hurt. I think that is very well said. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Brian Callahan did have a funny one today. We'll get to that. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Mike Vrabel became head coach, it had always been the Titans
open
had
locker room.
open locker room after their spring sessions. Open locker room. That
Anytime there was player availability, there was open locker room.
Which means, of course, you have everybody there, and you have time to talk to whoever you want, and there's time to have conversations and all that stuff.
And you could get somebody away from the crowd.
And Vrabel changed it to, no, you have to grab guys off the field. And it was –
which is limiting in itself.
Because then the
if you grab one guy – another guy's gone.
Then they're trying to get away. But still, okay, his point was, we had a session with him, talking with him. He talked it out with us, right? And he was basically just like, well, sorry, but that's how it's going to be. But it's like you can still grab whoever you want. It's like, well, so you live with it. you go from that to yesterday to here's 3 guys you can talk to, which, again, I bitch about the Preds all the time and their access. I guess this is just going to be my role in national media. Like, we can't go to, like, we're acting like we're college sports here and trying to – and
here are 3 guys you can talk to, and here are 3 other guys that are our TV show for our website.
For our live stream.
Who are at
it's going to cut down your coverage, and it's just –
So Joe decided not to write yesterday. So
Well,
they lost
yeah.
the story at The Athletic.
I was writing Petit Frere.
Based on their determination to decide
and if you say,
what stories we could write.
And I know a lot of people listening are like, I don't give a crap about your whiny media crap, and that's fine. I get it. But if you say, here are 6 people, everybody get all the same stuff, well, that's incentive to not write because you have nothing to differentiate yourself.
Yep.
So, and it's, again, less coverage.
Joe and Paul, a Wednesday tradition unlike any other, bitching about Brian Callahan's media rules for the offseason. Last week, Paul asked Brian Callahan about it in a press conference. On the record, I was kind of shocked by. I was like, that's usually some differences. Why? Because it sounds, turn from break, if you're able to hear what the question is, because sometimes you hear, especially when Gentry asks them. Ian, if you notice this, and I love Gentry with all my heart, but Gentry Estes asks at about a 1 decibel volume of the question. He's like, no, what do you think about it? I'm like, I highlighted on the thing, and I crank it up by like 50 decibels, and then you can still kind of.
Well, partly it's a microphone situation there.
I know. When Gentry's got a microphone, like at the UT stuff, it's loud and clear. And so that's my point, is I would prefer. But I just feel like the Titans, they're not going to change. It is what it is, and they don't care. So apparently today, Brian Callahan got up there. Paul was not at OTAs. And Brian Callahan got up there and basically said that, where's Paul? Where's, we got some criticisms of the media. And then joked about how Paul wasn't there. And I got to tell you, I feel like Brian Callahan's got a little spunk to him, which here's what I'm fascinated to find out. I am fascinated to find out if all the sunshine pumping, everything's good, everybody's happy, everybody's all the time. Brian Callahan's done 1,000 podcasts over the last month. I mean, I don't even know how he has time to do all the podcasts. He just did Adam Schefter's podcast. But I do wonder when we get closer to game action, when we get closer to tushes on the line, I do wonder if that's going to change a little bit. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing if it does change. I just wonder. This is kind of our first go-round with him. Whereas, at the end there, we kept talking about speaking Vrabelese. We knew when Vrabel was cutting up and when Vrabel was legitimately mad at John Glennon for some reason, whom he always seemed to hate the most, which I never truly understood and probably never will actually understand what John Glennon did to have Mike Vrabel hate him the most. But again, make of that what you will. One texter says, Jared, you should have a segment on your show called You Don't Understand, and you can even ask questions at the press conference and preface the question with, I know I don't understand, but. That is kind of one of my favorites. The you don't understand. You don't understand. Like, I think I understand Andre Dillard sucks. Like last year. And again, maybe I was wrong about this, saying that Vrabel didn't do the you don't understand, because I felt like Vrabel and Robinson just didn't care. But I'm starting to think back to like last training camp when I was watching Dillard get smoked every day, and it was like, well, they haven't put the pads on, and it takes time for the offensive line to come along. And it was like, Jared, you don't understand. Andre Dillard is coming along. I'm like, dude, he's terrible. Like, I think he is terrible. I mean, it's and I guess I didn't understand. Boy, the text line is just firing them in. That's going to do it for us. We are out of here tomorrow. Tomorrow is our typical Wednesday show, which we're excited about. Coming up next, I break down the offseason. Our 2 o'clock hour replay is coming up next, where, again, the offseason is officially over. So how good of a job did the Titans do? That's coming up next. Stillman and Company. We will see everybody tomorrow at 2 o'clock.